Great. So as Ryan alluded to, I love security and I love talking to CFOs. One typical thing that CFOs have said to me in the past is like, oh, information security, it's kind of like buying car insurance. You pay for protection and a one-off chance something might happen. But if you really apply this analogy to security, it's more like buying car insurance for a blindfolded driver going the wrong way on the freeway trying to navigate a bunch of drunk drivers. So if you kind of look at it in that scenario and you consider how the odds are stacked against you with security, and it's not a might happen, but will happen, is it really like buying car insurance? So we live in a world now that it's hard to pass up like news or business articles that are not talking about some major security incident. We all know all industries, all size companies, private, public, are in jeopardy. So there's nation state attacks that are funded by governments, like we're seeing trending now in the news with the SolarWinds attack. This was very planned. They compromised the security firm FireEye. FireEye supports and provides strategies for the US Treasury, Homeland Security, more. So as you can see, like attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated. But still, even like the less sophisticated attacks are proving, to be bankable and even more effective. So for example, like ransomware attacks are plaguing healthcare providers. There's daily phishing attacks, wins that are causing companies billions of recovery dollars every year. So let's take a look at some of the industry stats here. So cybercrime is now mobile. This is important because the attack landscape has changed. So 80% is achieved through a mobile app and 60% of online fraud is accomplished through a mobile platform. This means that there's more ways and tools to compromise your business. So if you think about it, are you even thinking about like what a mobile attack looks like? Or is your business prepared? If you're not, you're behind. If you don't have any clue, you should already be having these conversations. Another important stat here is the average downtime for ransomware attacks is 19 days. So what financial and operational impact to your business is going to occur for being down that long? Could you actually survive that? Look at Internet of Things, IoT devices tripled in the first half of 2019. So if you look at all tech now, everything talks to each other. It's wireless, it's hands-free, everybody's, hey Siri, hey Alexa, it's very convenient, but IoT opens a lot of...
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Sorry, my Alexa's talking to me. But basically, IoT, as convenient as it is, it opens a lot of, opportunities for attack. So again, these are just some things your business needs to really be thinking about on how the technology has changed, and how we can't just be thinking about like antivirus on a computer and things like that. You have to consider mobile. You have to consider IoT, and then also too, business size. It's not just the large businesses. It's not just the Sonys, the Experians, the Targets. 28% of data breaches is involved in small businesses. So, nobody's left unscathed in this. 80% of breaches were financially motivated. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but cybercrime, 1.5 trillion a year, trillion. So that's more revenue than Apple and Google pull in 1 year. So think about that. This is one of the most lucrative, whatever you want to call it. It's not a business, right? But most lucrative functions that is out there. That's a lot of money, and there's a lot of incentive to do harm. Great. We can jump to the next slide. So what does a data breach cost you? So 2020 has been an impactful year for many reasons. Cyber criminals did not disappoint this year, along with everything else that we've had to deal with. So as I mentioned before, we are talking about a $1.5 trillion industry. That's what you're up against. In the US, the average cost of a data breach ranged somewhere between just under $4 million to $8 million. That, of course, depends on the company size, the type of impact. Can be much more than that, can be slightly less than that. But that's a lot of money. And to kind of put it in perspective, a typical data breach costs $140 per record. So try to imagine and how you would scale that out in your business. So if you take, I'm going to say, a small amount of data, which would be about 20,000 records, and you multiply that out, that's $2.8 million. So think about in your business and sheer amounts of data that is stored about that, can cause some type of harm. Think about how that would scale for you if a small amount is 2.8 million. If your company are in scope for any type of regulatory mandates like GDPR or CCPA, GDPR for data privacy, they fine you up to 20 million or 4% of your company's annual revenue. So they're making money hand over fist, issuing out hefty fines right now. They started off with the bigger companies, but they're now assigning penalties to individual complaints. That means one person makes a complaint, and if they find that investigation to be true, they're handing out huge fines. CCPA, if you do business in California, they have an enforcement fine of $2,500 to $7,500 per violation. If it involves a minor, it's on the higher end of that. So, these are things that are, you have to be thinking about. I can throw statistics at you all day, but they really should be kind of front of mind on how serious this is. And the easiest path to compromise is a phishing scam. So what's the stat here? $17,700 or less every minute with the phishing scam. And it's the easiest. And I'll kind of give you an example on why it's easy. So we do spend a lot of money on protecting the network. We put antivirus on computers. We do all of these things, right? We give people badges and you have 2 factors to log in. But guess what? A trusted employee already has the keys to the kingdom. They already have their rights to do their job. They're already in there. So guess what? There's no barrier to entry to send an email. So when an email is sent to them, it bypasses all security, and the defense is purely up to the employee at that point. And when they make a mistake, they're in. They bypassed all of the security that's been put in. That is why that is so lucrative. So I think that one is probably one of the scarier ones on here. So basically, there's so much at risk: your company reputation, litigation, loss of future business, fines, penalties. All of these things are at stake. But to make it even more personal, your job can be at stake here. So an example I wanted to share with you all is the FACC, which is an aerospace manufacturer. They had a huge breach a few years back. So both their CEO and CFO were fired after the breach. Basically, just give you background on the attack, the CEO, it was basically a CEO board impersonation attack. So basically somebody impersonated somebody at a higher rank, and they talked to the finance team into transferring out $55 million. So they were able to recover only 10 million of that. Ouch, right? So, think about it. Have you considered how your job would be impacted in a major security incident? Okay, next slide, please. So this graph kind of represents just by industry, kind of putting dollars to breaches or security incidents. So again, you really see there's no industry that's untouched or goes unnoticed by cyber criminals. They hit everything. So I'll let these numbers kind of soak in for a minute. Unfortunately, here you can see healthcare and financial industries get hit the hardest. That doesn't mean they're attacked more, but they have more financial risk going in. So pretty scary stuff. Okay, we can move on. Thank you. Next slide. So what this comes down to is really, why should you care, right? You're CFO. This may or may not be at the front of your mind, but what I want you to kind of understand is, where does your responsibility lie? Like, what should you care about? And I can kind of tell you where, like high functioning CFOs that are really engaged into the security program, like what they're doing. So companies are modeled different ways, but either, a CFO typically, or a chief information officer, or a chief technology officer is usually responsible for the company's cybersecurity program. This is not new. This has kind of been done since security programs were a thing. But what's changed from a CFO's perspective is that the security program is no longer the kind of this organization that operates autonomously without like your regular involvement. The security organization now is essentially a risk management function. So, which is why it's so closely aligned to what CFOs have operated it in every aspect of their job, right? I mean, CFO is essentially a risk function, so in fact, we are also seeing trends that security programs and leaders are now reporting to chief revenue officers. So like, what is that really telling us? That's telling us that there's even a greater shift to risk, company revenue, finances, into how security is being handled in the company. So there is definitely a direct connection between financial risk and security risk. So CFOs today are expected to understand security and technology investments. They need to understand how resilient their organization is against attacks. When there are major events, a lot of times CFOs are the ones sitting at the table giving this information to investors or to board members. CFOs are officers of the company, so they also influence the security culture of the company. So if you yourself don't have are promoting a strong security culture, that's going to reflect down. If you are kind of embracing a strong security culture, that's going to reflect down. So all of that, the CFO involvement is extremely, extremely important. Let's see. Also CFOs, typically are champions of like the security policy. So any like security policies that are created, that are issued internally and externally, it's very common for CEOs to sign off on those, to champion those. CFOs are often expected to assess cybersecurity risks, right? Align with the cybersecurity strategy with the business, and get the buy-in from the board if that's necessary, with cybersecurity investments. So you can see CFOs today are very active in the security program, or they should be, right? But understand this, the most common impediment to developing an enterprise-wide cybersecurity strategy is the lack of understanding of cybersecurity risk and the potential impacts of a breach. That is the fundamental thing that you should take away here, is that's the gap. That's what you need to understand. And that's the connection you should make. Great, we can move on to the next slide. So I really want to kind of leave you with, understanding how your role can optimize your company's cybersecurity strategy. Arm you with some things here. So first of all, you should absolutely know where you are vulnerable, where your company is vulnerable. This is a combination of knowing like what you care about protecting, like what's valuable to your company, and also where your weaknesses are. So all businesses have different risk tolerances as well. So your technology and security leaders should be very clear, where the board and officers of the company stand with business risk and tolerance. So I like to give the example, like, banks and pharmaceuticals are highly regulated. They're hesitant and slow to change. They need to maintain really strict and formal security practices. Whereas like a young tech company, they might be on the cutting edge of exploring new technologies. They also have an easier time recovering from risky decisions. So being really clear about the company's risk tolerance will really help and arm your tech leaders, to solution correctly, to spend correctly, and all of their future security investments. And then also, if you're armed with the understanding of your security risk profile, you will also be better equipped to advocate for or not for the right security investments as well. So you don't want to spend $10,000 to protect an asset worth $100,000, and you don't want to spend $10,000 to protect an asset worth $10 million. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So this is really just kind of give you guys a snapshot, skyline view of a security posture of a particular company in a moment of time. So just to kind of understand what you're looking at here, the gray area represents the desired level of security for this particular company. So, each business is unique. Not every aspect of security needs need to be achieved at every level, right? So based on this particular business needs, the gray background, the gray skyline represents, hey, in this particular area of security, this is the top level we want to achieve. However, in contrast, the blue area is where this particular company ranked at that point in time when this assessment was done. So when you overlay the two, you get a really quick visual on where the company is mature and excelling and where the company is at risk. So the big dips really gives you a good idea of where you should focus. Basically your security investments, your risk strategy, all of those things. And I think at the CFO level, having this level of understanding, this is something that you should be able to pull out of your back pocket at any given time and be able to talk to this, at least at this level of security. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Hi, this is John Gordon. Can you get the next slide, please? Thank you. So Nicole just showed you a snapshot of a security landscape. So how do you get there? How do you get that snapshot? It's with an assessment. And I'm here to talk about this one slide, which is what does a security assessment look like? For many companies, when they're talking about security and doing an assessment, it's usually through an end user perspective. Like, do we have antivirus set up and do we have remote connectivity or VPN? Those are the two most common things that people think about when they think about security. However, as you noticed on Nicole's slide, a thorough assessment covers everything as part of that security process, from identifying the business needs to protecting the environment, detecting when somebody's in there, having a security response team available, and then doing actual recovery and continual improvement in the environment. And with an assessment, it varies by company too. You notice that on that chart that it wasn't all fours across the top of that chart. The reason why it dips down on that horizon that she talked about is your company needs are different than my company needs or your neighbor's company needs. And therefore, a security assessment should be tailored to what your needs are and what your risk tolerance is going to be within your environment. That each of those values are going to be different for you and they're going to be different for me. And therefore, when you're looking at an assessment, it's something that when you're going through that, it's something that's a very thorough process. A lot of companies, when they're doing a security assessment today, sometimes they're just looking to check a box off on their compliance questionnaire for a partner, or maybe something related to SOX or something related to the government. And those might cost like $10, $15, maybe $20,000 or so. But a thorough investment takes, as you saw before, it covers everything across the whole board with the company from a security perspective. And that's where you're looking at, costing minimally about $40,000 or $50,000, or depending upon your compliance needs or the size of your company, an assessment could cost you a lot more than that. And what I say, I shouldn't actually be using the word cost. I should probably be using the word investment. That a security assessment is an investment into your company. It's an investment into your future to protect the assets that you have around you, just like you do with doing regular security or doing regular audits of your own company.